New Thought Media Network proudly presents Lindsay Leimbach, Practicing Infinite Possibilities, Fridays at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. And now, here's Lindsay.
I guess I need to hit on me to come on. Welcome, everyone. Is happiness really possible? Well, this is Lindsay Leimbach, and we are doing our Watching Infinite Possibilities PIP show. And we're going to ask, is happiness really possible? And we're going to dive into the book with the Dalai Lama, The Art of Happiness today. So I first want to show you, I'm going to switch this, look like this picture. All right, guys, as a lot of us around the world know, but those in Florida for sure, knew that Hurricane Ian is really taking over the East Coast. And in Florida, it was a Hurricane 4, and it hit Fort Myers directly. Is happiness possible? Now, I have this picture up because you see where it says Shell Point Village on the left-hand side. That is before the storm surge. And right at the N and the T, there's a little land that's pointing out. So I want you guys to take a look at that. Now, on the other side of my picture, there's Shell Point Village again, and near the N and the T of the Shell Point, that land is gone. Do you see the difference? Do the comparison. That land is gone. Why do I bring this up? Is because I was watching the news and they showed the first shot and then they showed the second shot. And where do my parents live? But at Shell Point Village. So now the hurricane is happening and the news, I don't have any news. My parents did evacuate, but I have a lot of friends and other family that live in Shell Point Village. And so I'm watching this on the news and they're like, yeah, I see Shell Point Village and I don't see it. And I knew that they were all in garages. And what they did is they had shelters built in and they're on the second floor. But if there's no island, there's no garage. And all the communication as the Hurricane 4 goes out is happening in real time, because this was happening in real time, is dead. And did I have a washover of fear? Oh my God, did my brain go, oh my God, are my friends drowning? What is going on? It like overtook me. And I had to really sit back and I actually rewound it. And then I took pictures of the TV. That's what you just saw, is pictures of the TV. And I'll just jump ahead. Everyone is fine. So you don't have to go through the fear that I went through. But let's go back to, is happiness really possible? This is the question I'm asking you, because this is Hurricane Ian. Well, we all know there's going to be another hurricane and it's going to hit somewhere else. And there's starvation and there's war and there's fires. I live out in California. There's fires. So we are always bombarded by real things that happen to us. And can we actually cultivate happiness within our heart, even when we are dealt cards, the cancer card, someone died card, a funeral card, whatever it is, dealt these cards in the human experience? It's a good question. So let's dive into that today. Let's dive in with the art of happiness, of what the Dalai Lama says about that. we've been doing this all month, is diving into the art of happiness all September. So you can go back in the other episodes and see what other people on other points of view have said. Today, we're really going to go into what is it that the Buddhist philosophy says about happiness. Now, before we go there, I love, oh, this is for my book. Hold on. I loved, last week, we did a book with Sonia. Let me just see if I see it. My yellow book. Here it is. The How of Happiness. And she talked about a lot of science, how to cultivate happiness. Okay. And I love what she said about this. Happy people are all alike. Every unhappy person is unhappy in his or her own way. Now, I wanted us to dive into that because I knew while people were watching the news, some people, they were like, this is tragic, and I'm sorry that this is happening. But it didn't affect them like it affected me, because I knew people living on that island that appeared to be just swallowed up. So we all have a mix of unhappiness. It's all very unique to ourselves. Now, why do I bring this up? Because as Sonia said in the science last week, and I just want to remind you that happiness has 50% genes, 10% circumstances, and 40% intention. So 50% gene is meaning the baseline. Like I'm 6 feet tall, that is in my DNA. They're finding that there's a baseline for happiness. Okay, we have that baseline. Then we have 10% of circumstances. Well, when I saw the picture of Shell Point Village being swallowed up, my 10% became 90%, right? But how do I respond to that is 40% in my control. And that is the 40% is the art of happiness. That is what the Buddha talks about when we're talking about how do we handle happiness and actually activate bringing forth happiness. So the art of happiness is not a path of least resistance. Let me say this again. The art of happiness is not the path of least resistance. It is a path of full awareness of your thoughts and actions. Right? Being aware. Was I aware that I had been smacked in the stomach when I saw that the island was swallowed up? Yes, I was aware that I was very unhappy. Then I get to use the 40% of intention to decide what to do next. I could just sit back on my couch and be unhappy, be miserable, be a victim of what I'm seeing. Or I can sit down, take that breath that we always talk about, the ABCs of PIP, take that breath and actually, let me see. I lost my ABCs. Oh, because it's down here. I could take my breath, be aware that I'm unhappy by the TV, take my breath, and then make a choice. What would be the choice? What would you do? Think about it. If you're watching the TV and the area in which you have loved ones, and they're saying it's gone, what would you do? Shock is probably the first thing we all do. Like, you got to be kidding. Like, I had to rewind that multiple times. You got to be kidding. Is this for real? And then when you realize this is a real thing I'm looking at, so what do? I sat down and I said a prayer. Remember, 40% intention. I have a baseline of how I deal with stuff from my genes. 10% that something smacks you hard, whatever it is a talk from a doctor, or a loved one calls you and they're upset and they've lost their job. Whatever it is, something has come in and it smacks you. That's that 10% of suffering coming in, but you have that 40%. And the Dalai Lama says we got to do something with that 40%. We need to do effort. We need to sit back and train our mind. Train our mind. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, in the book, The Art of Happiness, the Dalai Lama says the first thing in training your mind is that you have to be able to realize that we have a comparing mind. He calls it a comparing mind. That is a lot about what I'm talking about when we have the amygdala and we have the caveman thinking. We have this survival mind making sure that we have enough all the time and that we're safe all the time and that we have this negative bias scanning around going, do I have enough? How am I doing with everything going on out there? Okay. You're comparing yourself with other people. The Dalai Lama says, you know what? We have this comparing mind. And if we allow this comparing mind to get away from us, to slip by us, we start feeling like we don't have enough. We're not smart enough. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough love. We don't have enough intention. We have enough intention. Attention with an A. Attention. We don't have enough attention going on. And the Dalai Lama, you got to be aware that we have this human nature of wanting more for the individual ego. And this brings great suffering. The comparing mind makes you feel like you have to judge. It's the judging mind out into the rest of the world. And so instead of saying, I need to work on me, you start thinking, I want what they have. You think if you get the stuff on the outside, you'll feel happier. And he's like, no, not so much. Not so much. I want to read the beginning of what the Dalai Lama says in the book. It's really just the opening paragraph. It is really good. I believe that the very purpose of our life is to seek happiness. So the Dalai Lama says seeking happiness is our purpose. That is clear. Whether one believes in religion or not, whether one believes in this religion or that religion, we are all seeking something better in life. It's not true. We're always wanting to have better in life, right? So I think the very motion of our life is towards happiness. This book is great because it's written in like conversation, which is awesome. So the person that's interviewing the Dalai Lama says, but is happiness a reasonable goal for most of us? Is it really possible? This is his answer. Lean in with me. This is what the Dalai Lama says. Yes. The answer is yes, guys. The good news is yes. I believe that happiness can be achieved through training the mind. Training the mind. And that's why a lot of times people don't think of Buddhism as a religion, as more as a philosophy, because Buddhism really has a pathway of how to train your mind. It's not an outside God that you're looking for. It's your inner self, your inner God, your inner in here, your responsibility, that 40% that Sonia talks about, that intention, that ability to master that 40% makes the difference between someone who is happy and someone who is not. But everybody is wanting happiness, but we need to do the effort. So the first step, he said, as I was saying, is that we got to understand that we have the root of a comparing mind, thinking that we don't have enough. And that if we can let go of that concept that we don't have enough outside of ourselves, we get to come in to our inner peace. We get to come into our inner peace. Good morning, Jackie. I know Jackie is my friend, and she works on this all the day to be able to join here and make the effort. That is what I'm talking about. Jackie is here with the ability to know that you have to show up and you have to do the work. And that is so awesome. Let me go down to the next thing he says. Understanding inner contentment. Let's take a breath on that. What does that mean? Well, it's understanding that the inner contentment is inside of you. And if we have this comparing, this mind that's seeking outside of us all the time, you want this, you want it to be different, right? He says, do you want something, or is it really a want, or is it a need? Okay, so inner contentment goes, you have to understand you do need your needs. I need to have shelter. I need to have food. But wanting is a desire that can actually get us out of ourselves. So you want to understand that there is good desire and there's bad desire. But good desire is when you're wanting to be, or when you're needing and cultivating happiness within yourself. Okay, so that is good desire. Doing the effort, finding the time to show up to New Thought Media Network and watch these programs, to reading books that cultivate things that are better than for inside of you. Those are good desires. He says there's also poor desires. That's when you start using that comparing mind and you start wanting to be better than somebody else. Instead of just better than who you can be, meaning that you're always cultivating and learning and growing, you're actually competing on the outside and doing the judging mind. So when he says, when you have a desire and you want to have inner peace, hold the desire in your hand, hold it in your desire and look at it and say, is this a good desire or is this a negative desire? And how do you look at that? Go, is it a wanting that I want because I feel unsatisfied with the comparing mind? Or is it a need that I need to have, like more time to come and watch shows like PIP or other shows in New Thought Media to cultivate my inner contentment that I am enough. I am enough inside of you. It's your brain that you are cultivating. It is your heart that you are opening up. It is your practice of forgiveness. It is your practice of prayer, not somebody else's. Doesn't matter how they're doing it. How are you doing it? How are you doing it? This goes and leads into his next point, that when you're able to cultivate this, I'm not comparing on the outside. That means I'm letting go of that judgment mind. That was number one. I'm building up that inner contentment, meaning that I understand I have desires, but I'm going to allow those desires to be positive desires, not desires of just trying to keep up with the Joneses. They're desires from my heart. That leads us to this inner worth, and you start feeling like courage, confidence, capability, caring. Where do all these things come from? They come from inside, from your own self-worth. And a lot of times we all need to practice this. And I even need to practice this. I got kind of smacked yesterday. And I'll tell you, I want to tell you how I got smacked. I went to the dentist. That's a good thing. A new dentist. I had a little pain on my tooth. And he said, you need 2 root canals. Now, that is not what I wanted. Okay, once again, that's nothing like Hurricane Ian disappearing an island, but it is feeling smacked. How many of us have gone to the dentist or to the doctor and you end up getting information that you don't want? So then I sat back and I said, okay. And then they gave me the price of 2 root canals of where I live. And we will just say, and I'm not going to say how much they are, but the whole process for these 2 teeth is going to be more than what I make in a month. What? More money than I make in a month on average. That's another smack. Who many have gotten that bill from the dentist, the doctor, the mechanic, whatever it is, the children who lost their job, whatever it is, you get that smack. And I went into not feeling worthy because I thought, wow, I'm going to have this procedure. And it wasn't so much that I can't afford it. You know, we have a savings and that's what savings are for. But it was the concept that I don't make enough money to match the bill for the dentist. And I felt, and I called up my husband. I said, I feel so unworthy. How can I make so little amount of money that I can't even pay my dentist bill? And my husband, oh, this is why I picked him. This is why we all need to have a mindfulness partner in our life. He said, Lindsay, we chose to live a simple life and to help people. And you could have gone corporate and made a ton of money, and you chose not to because it's from your heart. Your inner value is so much bigger in what you do. And I thought, he's right. I lost my worthiness because I was comparing it to dollars, not to my thoughts and actions and love that I give out. And so I needed to be woken up by my husband, give me a little shake, saying your worthiness is from your actions and your thoughts, not from your pocketbook. And stop trying to compare to the old days when I was more corporate and I made a lot more money. And I just said, thank you. So I want to make sure that we all build in that inner worthiness that we need to know, but also make sure you have a mindfulness partner in your inner worthiness. Make sure you have that mindfulness partner that when you start to feeling undervalued, when you start to having that comparing mind, when you lose your center and you don't have that inner contentment that the Dalai Lama talks about, that you can phone a friend. Can you phone? Do you have a friend you can say, hey, listen, just let me explain how I feel right now and help me pull me back into knowing my truth. Knowing my truth. Because he was right and I just needed the reminder. It's not that I thought I was unworthy. I just forgot and I slipped back into old ways and that caveman thinking of judging myself out of money instead of out of love. So I want you to know that I'll get my tooth done. No one worry about that. I am back to the center, but that is real stuff that we have to deal with. So then the Dalai Lama said, you really need to understand there's this difference between happiness versus pleasure. Happiness versus pleasure. So happiness, well, let me go to pleasure. Pleasure is when you go to the dentist and he says, oh, by the way, I'll give you the root canals for free. But that ain't happening. Okay. So no, pleasure is when you get to go out and it's your birthday and you get cake and you might buy a new car or something, or you start a new relationship, or there's lots of things. You wake up and you feel great and your husband brings you coffee, but they're fleeting. Pleasure is something in which that dopamine, we've talked about the science of happiness, that dopamine and serotonin enter into your body, but the body brings on those chemicals and then the chemicals go away. So it is fleeting. You do go to Disneyland or to the beach for a while, and it is really quite fun and it's pleasurable, but then you have to go home. And if you go to Disneyland, you got to pay the bill. So it's fleeting. There's nothing wrong with pleasure, but just understand there's a difference between happiness and pleasure. Happiness is the liberation from suffering. Let me say it again. Happiness is the liberation from suffering. So to be happy doesn't mean you have to have pleasure. It means that you have the capability of stopping yourself from having this suffering in the mind. Because I have to say, suffering in the body, we don't always have control of. But suffering in the mind is the 40% that Sonia was talking about, our intention. And we have the capability to practice with the 40%, right? That is so good. So how do you actually register? Am I doing something that brings me happiness. Okay. How do you do that? How do you know when you have the capability of doing that shift, right? So this is the first thing, and this is really the most important thing. When you have a thought or an action, are you setting up positive consequences for the future? In other words, that magic word karma. Are you setting up positive consequences for the future? Happiness might be studying for a test. Now, is that pleasurable? No. It's not pleasurable to be studying for exams, but can it bring inner happiness? Can it bring contentment? Can you feel higher self-worth by studying? The answer is yes. Why? Because it's a positive action and it's a positive thought, and you are going to have positive consequences in the future. So when you're doing something that's pleasurable, let's say drinking too much, getting high, driving fast. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do that are pleasurable, but they're not being promiscuous sexually. They can be pleasurable, but do they bring you happiness? Probably not, because they are setting up negative consequences for the future. They're setting up negative consequences. They're setting up negative karma for the future. That is where you want. What am I doing? It might not be pleasurable, but is it bringing me happiness? If it's setting up positive karma, then the answer is yes. And not only positive karma for you, but for other people as well. That's right. So you are removing suffering by your thoughts and your actions. You removing suffering, thoughts, and actions. So let's go back to what I showed you. When the island disappeared, I was unhappy. But then I had to sit back, and I did not want to perpetuate fear within myself or fear within my community. So I didn't run around. I talked to my husband about it, but I didn't get on Facebook saying, I think everyone drowned. Because what is that doing? By me putting out poison just spreads poison, which is negative karma. I sat back and I said, I need to have a prayer. I need to go into affirmative prayer right now, send blessings, know the truth, know the highest, get myself centered, and then find the facts out. Find the facts out. The truth is the island didn't go under. Yeah, it got surged and cars were ruined and everything, but everyone and the animals were all safe. And I want to say the animals. I just love all those animals in Florida. And may they all be safe too. So what is the blessing that I give right now? What is the blessing that I give to the people that are dealing with Ian at this moment, that are on the East Coast, and the ones that have the after effect, or the ones in Cuba? This isn't just a United States thing. This is a world problem that we have with global warming and extreme weather. I send the blessings that they may have the energy. May they even have my extra energy to be resilient. May they have the energy to be resilient, and may they be able to be happy. I'm not saying pleasurable, but happy. May they be able to make good choices to set up in the rebuilding of their community to be better than ever has been. What else can I do? But love the people and give them energy so that they can deal with whatever's on their plate. We have the capability of understanding the difference between happiness versus pleasure all the time. So when you're doing something and you're feeling very happy, that's fine. And if it's pleasurable, that's fine. But if it's fleeting, meaning it's going to disappear, no, that's pleasure. If it's something you're doing and it's hard and it's difficult, but you're putting right effort and right action, then tell yourself, I'm actually building happiness myself because I'm bringing in right karma. Now, I want to just show you guys one other thing. Let's see. If I go to here, this is a picture of my trip with my husband to Northern California. And this was happiness, and it also was pleasurable. We did this long drive through the redwoods in Jebediah State Park. And I said, pull over. And we went in this back trail and we sat on this log. And I said, let's meditate and let's just take this time to be silent and present in the trees, in the trees. He said, okay. And we were working on just being centered and really feeling it and really allow ourselves to be there. And then my husband said, look up, because my eyes were closed. He goes, look how the sun is hitting us. The sun was peeking through all these huge redwood trees and casted that beam of light on us while we're on the log. And I said, let's kiss and get the picture. Look at that moment. Isn't that magical? And then I turned the camera around and I took a picture of what it looked like going the other direction, the sun coming through the trees. This is happiness and this is pleasurable. I want you to know this is both. It was pleasurable because it was happening with my husband, but it was happiness because we were taking it in together and we were having this experience together. I'm trying to find there it is. So when I'm ending this talk in this month about happiness, I want you all to remember, think about that happiness takes actions. Let me take this out. I can do it. I did this differently than I did last time. So it went to the whole page, which is very good. But now I have to figure out, there we go. I'm back. I want you guys to remember when we're training our brains for happiness, we want to do things that are repetitive so they go into our mind. We want to do things that have great feeling to them. So actions and thoughts, do them repetitively and have that feeling of feeling interconnected and opening your heart and really feel it. Really feel it and take it in and absorb it and know the person that is in control of your happiness is only you, Next week, I am actually doing mindful eating. So we're going to learn how to be happier with eating mindfully, and so important in understanding how to eat mindfully without judgment, but being awareness with this right thought, right action, right intention as we go into, in the United States, into Halloween season, Thanksgiving, and then all the holidays that happen in December, because there's a lot of good food that's coming your way. So it's good practice. So that's why I thought next week would be a great one. So mindful eating for next week. Let me thank you all. I want to thank New Thought Media Network for everything that they do and have done for me. Remember, they're a nonprofit organization and they love donations to help support programming like I have here. And there's also so many other programs that they put out. So look on their Facebook page, look on their YouTube channel. Remember, you can always send this out to someone who you can, share this video for someone who needs to understand a little bit more about happiness and what happiness means, especially through the concept and the eyes of Buddhism. If you have any questions, always remember you can email me at centeredmoment@gmail.com or check out my website, centeredmoment.com. I have a new class coming up that starts on Zoom this Wednesday at 12 o'clock to 1:30 Pacific time. And my new class is all about mindfulness and the discussion of mindfulness and also understanding the soul's relationship through mindfulness and awareness. So it's a 5-week course, but contact me if you want more information. I love doing coaching. I love helping people, and I am happy because I practice. So keep practicing. Thank you, everybody. And I want to say I look forward to seeing you next week. Let me go down here. Goodbye. Thank you.